Okay. Rhydon, use fissure! The gym floor shook beneath Rhydon's feet as it let out a tremendous bellow. If this move hits, all at once, an enormous crack opened in the earth. A gaping maw stretched across the gym floor, speeding rapidly towards the move's target. Closer and closer, then fissure opened up beneath the opposing Blastoise, sending it tumbling down untold feet into darkness below. Then, as quickly as it had appeared, the tear was gone. The gym floor shone flawlessly under the cold, synthetic light, and Blastoise was nowhere to be seen. The opposing trainer's tears fell swiftly now, splashing silently onto this pristine tilling into which his Pokemon had vanished. Where's Blastoise? Where did he go? The trainer started listlessly staring listlessly at the ground, refusing to move an inch. He was obviously in shock over the sheer magnitude of his defeat. Giovanni would have remedied this. "Pay up, kid," ordered Giovanni in a low voice. The trainer acquired resignedly, forfeiting half of his life savings into Giovanni's waiting palm, but he still refused to leave. "Go home," commanded the leader, now slightly irritated. "You're holding up the line." The trainer looked about himself in a dazed state and noticed the challenger standing behind him. A small, black-haired boy, perhaps 10 years of age. "Oh man, sorry, I didn't notice." Sorry. "Oh, sorry, I didn't notice," mumbled the defeated trainer with a small nod. He at last began to pace resolutely back towards the gym's front door. Giovanni turned his attention to the black-haired boy who had stepped forward. He was wearing a red jacket over a black t-shirt, a red and white cap pulled low over his eyes. Giovanni was intrigued by this challenger. Something about him was unsettling. Something about his slow, measured pace and expressionless visage seemed somehow alien. But that was of no consequence. Nobody had ever defeated Giovanni's main team. He was not about to let this child become the first. "Welcome," spoke Giovanni in a cool, intimidating voice. "I am the Viridian City Gym Leader. Do you dare to challenge me?" Rose Giovanni to his full height. "I am the greatest..." Shut up. "I am the greatest trainer the world has ever known. I have defeated countless thousands in this very spot. Thousands upon thousands of championship dreams terminated right there where you're standing. And yet you still dare to risk your only aspiration by blithlessly challenging my undefeated team." The speech had been delivered flawlessly, and Giovanni felt quite proud of himself. Surely the child had now realized his insignificance. Surely he was at the moment quaking in his boots, and yet the challenger showed few outward signs of distress. Giovanni's oratory had reduced countless grown men into sniveling, crying imbeciles by the means of that very speech. Yet here was a child, well, no more than 10 years old, standing his ground. Rather than break down, the challenger nodded and stepped noiselessly forward. The effect was disconcerting. And Giovanni's voice displaying an imperceptible faltering. "Very well. Let us begin." Giovanni threw his first Pokeball. A stream of crimson light issued forth from the Pokeball, quickly coalescing with Giovanni's Rhyhorn. Rhyhorn was Giovanni's usual lead. and had served him admirably in the past by gauging the strengths and unidentifying possible weaknesses of his opponents. The terrifying spectacle of the 3-foot tall Rhyhorn single-mindedly charged attack caused by many to resign their challenge in terror by itself. But the child stared unflinchingly at Giovanni's Pokemon, then threw down a Pokeball of his own. There's a problem. The device was malfunctioning. This was unheard of. Pokeballs were made on assembly line now. And Kanto's only major export, each Pokeball had to be flawless. Those with faulty machinery were without exception weeded out somewhere in the manufacturing process. As a former head of Sylph Corporation, Giovanni knew that. So what was wrong with this child's Pokeball? Well, let me just get a drink of pop or water. Okay. Instead of releasing the customary beam of light, the Pokeball was shaking its edges eccentrically without any disconcertable rhythm, emitting a periodic burst of red light in its central seam. As bloody sparks jumped across its surface, the Pokeball seemed ready to explode from the pressure of whatever was inside it. Suddenly, the Pokeball released its laser, but instead of being the customary red, it was a pale and sickly orange. Then the light faded. Giovanni caught his first glimpse of the thing that the Pokeball had vomited. It was a pile of trash sitting on the floor of the gym. Without warning, before Giovanni could get a closer look, the pile of trash expelled a stream pale brown colored liquid, hissing and spurting as it did so. Water gun, commanded the challenger. The fluid skirted right through the air and impacted Rhyhorn squarely in the face. Giovanni's face betrayed his worry. Rhyhorn usually did not survive any decent powered water or grass type moves. Yet Rhyhorn did not falter. The pile of trash special must have been completely pathetic for Rhyhorn to take such a small amount of damage, but something was wrong. Something was off about Rhyhorn. After the brown liquid contacted him, Giovanni could sense it, as though he could not quite discern what it was. Something seemed different about the shape of Rhyhorn's back, or the pattern of his armor plates. And Giovanni became truly alarmed when Rhyhorn did not turn his head, as usual, to receive orders. He stood unmoving, frozen to the spot from which he had received the attack. Giovanni walked around the Rhyhorn to examine its face and found it scrambled with no discernible features. Various pieces of eyes, mouth, and nose were scattered haphazardly around its ruined face, which resembled a disassembled jigsaw puzzle on a featureless gray background. Giovanni was aghast. Rhyhorn, use Fury Attack! Rhyhorn was not fainted and showed no signs of collapse or fatigue, but he was clearly dead. Giovanni could not look at the horror that his Pokemon had become, so he returned it to its Pokeball. He could not lose. His team was undefeated, and this thing would surely not prove a challenge to his stronger Pokemon. He decided to immediately move up to a higher tier in strength, so summoned Nidoking from its Pokeball. Nidoking emerged with a savage scream, but Giovanni's attention was focused on the pile of trash. He searched for a weakness, but came up to a sudden realization. Most of what he had previously assumed to be trash consisted of discernible pieces of various Pokemon. Here was Bulbasaur. There was Fearobeak, and Blastoise's arm, haphazardly stitched together into some kind of abominable mass and mixed in with other things. that he could not recognize. There were letters and numbers and pieces of signs and buildings and chilling geometric patterns that he could not even begin to identify. It was distinctively larger than it had been 30 seconds ago. With each passing second, the thing grew. Giovanni thought he noticed it was a slow process, but the pilot trash appeared to be steadily expanding without any external source. But maybe that was just a trick of the light. Giovanni didn't know where to look for a weakness, or what such weakness would even be, but he didn't know what this monstrosity had to. He didn't know what this monstrosity had to somehow be stopped. But sorry, he did. Giovanni didn't even know where to look for a weakness, but or what weakness would even be. But he didn't know. He did know that this monstrosity had to be somehow stopped. He ordered Nido King to do attack. Nido King, use thrash! Nido King looked around for a moment, wondering where the attack was even directed. Nido King was considerably smarter than Rhyhorn, smart enough to notice that there weren't any other Pokemon in the arena. Nido King looked at Giovanni, who presented with what might very well have turned out to be the last time he ever saw Nido King whole. Felt a sudden surge of regret. He pointed ruefully at the pile of trash, which had taken on an unmistakably crimson hue. Giovanni had seen it before, though he could not remember when. Nido King never got a close look at his foe. He was not one to disobey orders, for Giovanni was a hard master, and so Nido King charged. He rammed his fist, but showed no signs of any external damage or fatigue. It just sat there glowing. As the word popped up into his head, Giovanni knew what was about to happen. So he tried to shout, tried a second too late to warn Nido King of his fate. Nido King was so absorbed in its thrash attack, it failed to notice. So the end came quickly. Sky attack, said the challenger. His lips, Giovanni saw, did not move when he talked, but it remained frozen open. In fact, he did not move at all since the battle began. Suddenly began to notice. Giovanni suddenly began to wonder if he even could. The boy's clothes were becoming distorted, becoming numbers and letters and Pokemon fragments one piece at a time. There were endless, mesmerizing geometric patterns in his eyes. Nido King flew through the air and smashed against the ceiling of the gym with a reverberating crash. With the reverberating crash. The collimated light from Giovanni's Pokeball intercepted a hapless Pokeball. Before the floor could, Giovanni did not want to have any opportunities to get a good look at the remains of his Nido King. If only he had chosen a different move, Nido King might have been saved. The trash was just not large now, but spreading. The walls were spattered with it, oozing with Pokemon, and Giovanni's pristine floor was now covered in refuse, whatever that is. And Giovanni reached uncertainly for another Pokemon. He discovered his hand was no longer fit securely around it, in position to which he had long been accustomed. For even he had not escaped the trash's corrupted influence. His hand, though retaining its general shape, was gruesomely disfigured. A Weezing's face, a wiggly Tuft's ear, and in Arcane's eyes, Wiggly Tuft's ear. I think it's Wiggly Puff. And Arcane's eyes, along with the other body parts too. Damage to identity protruded from his skin in torture, hideous combinations. Giovanni tried to scream, but no sound came out. He fumbled with his Pokemon, tossed it onto the floor haphazardly. A novice trainer once again. Rhydon emerged, but even he was not free of the trash's scarring. His skin was a reddish tint, his spikes were misaligned with the ridge of his back. Giovanni could not order an attack. He did not need to. Raiden was incapable of movement as long as Giovanni himself. Across the arena, opposing trainer no longer bore resemblance to a black-haired human being. He was already consumed with a pile of trash in a okay, in a hobbit shape. Only the cap remained, pulled low over the trainer's eyes, where the trainer's eyes had used to be. Giovanni could make out the black embroidered capital letters on the front. Future Pokemon Master, the cap read. The boy's lips did not move. The trash's attack came anyways. It let out a hideous scream, tore from the larynxes of nearly every Pokemon in Kanto, savagely twisted and grounded from others to form a single unending screech. The monster grew larger until its cacophony, I don't know what that word is, grew louder. Giovanni's conscience was fading fast. The walls of his gym turned into sludge. Giovanni felt his body begin to crumble around him. Rhydon was melting beside him as the trainer and its Pokemon slowly merged into a single puddle of liquid death. The trash filled his vision. At last, invaded Giovanni's final thoughts as he saw the world disintegrate, and the abomination consumed all.